So I'm going to start with some 12 gauge aluminum wire. I use aluminum because it's pliable, but it also holds its shape fairly well. Normally aluminum is really soft, but the larger gauges will hold their shape. So I'm going to take just any round object that you have that's about the size of an ornament that you want and shape the wire around that object, as you can see. Leave a little bit of overlap on the top, and then take your object out and put it aside, and you can trim off the piece of wire you're going to be using now, so you've got the right size. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the top two ends and bend them up. I want to give this the shape of a Christmas ornament. So I'm just going to take my regular pliers and carefully, because aluminum will mark very easily. So I just sort of carefully take it with my pliers, bend it up, and then about 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to bend it down so it has that basic shape that I'm looking for. Okay, so now my round nose pliers are going to see a little action. I'm going to pop them right in there in the middle of that top like so, and then I'm going to bend the ends up and around just to form a loop there. And trim the ends. So the next thing I'm going to do is just take a little piece of wire. I'm using a 20 gauge. I'm sorry, I'm not using 20 gauge. I'm using probably a 24 gauge wire to do the wrapping. So all I'm doing here is just securing it. It doesn't have to be fancy. The purpose of this wire wrap right here is just to hold the two ends together while I complete the rest of the ornament. And then I'll cut this part off later. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is embellish this ornament around the outside. So I'm going to use these check glass beads, have a beautiful coating on them. They also came from Jesse James Beads, by the way. And I'm going to use them along with some 11O seed beads to make kind of like a lace pattern around the outside of my ornament. And we're going to do it like this. I'm going to take my 24 gauge wire, and I'm going to hold it with my left hand, and I'm going to wrap it twice around the frame of my ornament and secure it. I'm working with about 2 feet of 24 gauge wire here. Now I'm going to take my 11O seed beads And I'm going to pick up 4 of them, and then I'm going to pick up a bead, and then I'm going to pick up 4 more 11-0 seed beads. Once I have the last 4 seed beads on the wire, I'm going to let everything fall down to the edge of the frame. Just going to make sure the wire is properly connected there so that the beads will fall into place nicely. I'm going to hold them up tight against the frame, and then I'm going to take that wire and I'm going to wrap it tightly twice around the frame like so. I adjust a little bit as I go, but I'm also going to, at the end, just kind of adjust and make sure everything's in the right place. So it doesn't have to be perfect right now, as long as you have the wire firmly wrapped twice around so that there's no slack in between the beads and the frame. So let me show you that one more time. I'm going to pick up 4 seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up a bead, and then I'm going to pick up another 4 seed beads. Once you have the last 4 seed beads picked up, you're going to let everything fall down towards the frame. You're going to make sure they're tight with no wire slack in between. Hold it with your left hand. Use your right hand, if you're right-handed, to wrap firmly twice around the frame. Again, I make some micro adjustments, but I'm going to make all the adjustments at the end. So, want to do it again? Let's try it one more time on camera. I'm going to pick up 4 seed beads, then I'm going to pick up 1 bead, and then I'm going to pick up 4 more seed beads. Once you have the last 4 seed beads picked up, you're going to let all the beads fall down towards the frame. Then you're going to move them up nice and tight so there's no slack in the wire. Holding with your left hand, wrap twice firmly around the frame with your right hand. You're going to continue to do that until you get all the way around the frame of your piece. And here we are, just like magic, we're on the last bead. So to finish off, we're going to pick up 4 seed beads, like we've done all the way around. And then we're going to pick up a bead, and then you're going to pick up 4 seed beads. And you're going to let the beads all fall down close to the frame. You're going to hold that in place tightly with one hand while you wrap with the other. Okay, so now we're going to continue the wire wrap to those loops. But the first thing I'm going to do before we do that is I'm going to cut off that little wire that we used at the beginning to hold the frame in place while we worked. I'm going to cut those pieces off. All right, so I'm going to wrap a couple of times around until I get to those loops, and then I'm going to go through both of the loops so that we have them tied neatly together. Just going to make sure that they line up properly before I start wrapping. And this is really simple. It's just a simple around and around. I'm not doing any kind of fancy pattern or anything like that. Now, once you get through the loop, you're going to wrap 2 or 3 times around until you get to the first bead that you started with. And you're going to cut it and tuck the end. Just pinch the end a little bit with your flat nose pliers. Make sure there's no sticking out bits. All right, so there we have the frame for your ornament. Now, and isn't that pretty? It's amazing how something as simple as that can dress up a simple aluminum frame. So now what I'm doing is I'm just taking a moment to adjust the beads. I'm pushing the wire over and sort of twisting it with my hands, as you can see there, so that the beads lay straight along the frame. So now that that part's done, the next thing we're going to do is embellish the center. You can do this any way that you want. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to be using some of my Jesse James bead strands. So I'm using my 24 gauge wire again. I'm going to wrap it in between 2 of our beads at about what I think is the middle of my piece. And then once I have that, I'm going to string some beads through the center. So I just absolutely adore the rosettes on this bead strand. So I'm going to use that as my center focal bead. So I'm just going to pick up some crystal bead caps and build across to the center. Once you have the beads in the order that you want, you can pull the wire taut across the center and secure it between the two beads on the other side. And then you can trim off that length of wire. Once you trim the wire, grab your flat nose pliers and just sort of tuck in that end. There's always a little sharp bit sticking out there that you want to tuck in just to make sure that you or somebody else that you love doesn't get poked. Now, you can leave it like this and call it a day, or you can fill in the spots above and below that strand, and you can do that however you wish. The process is the same. You secure the wire on one side, add your beads or whatever you want to on the other side, and then secure it as well. And here you can see that I've added 2 more rows, and it's beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you like it, please do take a moment to subscribe. I'm always happy to share. Talk soon.